Hey, it's Dave here. Welcome to another video on irritable bowel syndrome. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about how you can individualize your diet and remove foods that are likely or potentially causing problems in your digestive system, which ultimately manifest as this thing called irritable bowel syndrome. Now, as I've said in previous videos, food is not the only reason why the bowel becomes irritable. The bowel can become irritable because of emotional stress. It can become irritable because of toxins. Many of those toxins can be produced by microbes overgrown in the digestive system that shouldn't be there, bacteria, parasites, yeast and fungal overgrowth, and what have you. But we find with some people, irritable bowel syndrome improves dramatically when foods are removed from the diet that need to be removed. And this is a very individual thing. So the foods that can cause problems for one person may not necessarily be the foods that cause problems for other people. So what we typically find is there's maybe a subset, handful of foods that commonly cause problems for a larger number of people, things like gluten, cow's milk, processed vegetable oils, soy, nuts, seeds, and things like that. Often people react to those and they feel better when they stop eating them. But then people can have weird and wonderful reactions to foods that you'd never really guess would be causing problems for them. So I've seen people's symptoms improve dramatically when they avoided bananas. I've seen another client whose symptoms dramatically improved when she avoided green vegetables. I've had another client whose symptoms dramatically improved when eggs were avoided. And as I say, this can be a very, very individual thing. And so how on earth do you dig in and find out what some of those individual foods might be that are potentially causing your problems? And so the other confusion, by the way, with this is there are different ways that your body can react to foods. There's not just one pathway that foods cause problems in different people. And so all of these pathways on this particular board here are potential problems for any given individual. So I'm going to start with the ones at the bottom here first of all. And we're going to talk about substances like lectins, oxalates, salicylates, tannins, sulfites, histamine. These are all substances in certain foods that can cause problems for people. And it's actually very difficult to run any form of lab testing to find out whether any of these are causing problems. You can run testing for lectins, but it's not easy to do. You need to go and have a blood draw, and it's quite an expensive test for that one. You can't really find what's going on with histamines and tannins and salicylates and oxalates very easily with lab tests. What you've got to do is kind of a trial and error diet that removes these particular substances from your diet, or at least reduces them to see if you feel better. And it's not easy. And trying to do that yourself can be a real pain in the ass. I recommend working with somebody who knows how to take you through that step by step. The ones that you can typically test for are things like IgE reactions, IgG reactions, and IgA reactions. And these are all components of the immune system that can act or react against different food antigens or food components, if you like. Now, an IgE allergy is the typical kind of allergy that you associate with anaphylactic shock. So anaphylactic shock is a rapid onset problem, and it's a very extreme problem. You can have IgE reactions that aren't anaphylactic. You know, there's a graded scale of severity. But at its very worst, and just to illustrate the point, anaphylactic shocks are caused by this IgE type reaction. If you have an IgE reaction to certain foods, you'll typically find that the symptoms come on quite quickly. You might get a blocked up nose, you might start sneezing, you might find that you get a skin rash, heart starts to beat faster, those kinds of things. And they're relatively easy to detect. They're not too difficult to detect because you can feel them. Nevertheless, you can test your IgE reactions to foods and other environmental substances or influences using a blood test. And you usually need to go and have a blood draw to get that done. IgG reactions are a little bit different. They are delayed onset reactions in the most part. So they typically will come on a long time after you've eaten the food, maybe 24 hours, even 48 hours after you've eaten the food. So if you eat something on a Monday and you don't get the symptoms until a Tuesday night or a Wednesday morning, it's very difficult to link that food consumption to the symptoms because there's such a large time delay in between, and you've done so many other things in between that could be triggering the symptoms as well. I like this test because we've seen some very interesting transformations in people's health when we've done an IgG test. And the other reason I like it is because you can do it at home just with a finger prick sample. You don't need to go to a clinic and have a blood draw. It's very accessible and simple to do. So that one's a very good one. The best result I think we saw with this one was a family in France who all found out that eggs were a major problem for them when they got the results back for this test. And they all eliminated eggs from the diet. And within the matter of days, they felt a lot better. It didn't necessarily resolve all the problems, but the eggs were just causing, for whatever reason, major issues for this family. So that was a really interesting one. The IgA tests, or the IgA food reactions, are a little bit different because they are happening in the mucosal barrier system in the GI tract. So this is pure gut reaction, if you like. It's you eat a food and then these IgA soldiers in the digestive system, part of your immune system, they act up against these foods and they can potentially cause problems as well. You can do that testing. There's a stool test that you can do for that. And so that's quite accessible as well. So it's already confusing, and that's before we've even gone to lectins, oxalates, salicylates, tannins, sulfites, histamine, and there are other substances that we could list on here as well. So how on earth do you navigate this? Well, my recommendation and my assertion, if you like, is not everybody needs to do these tests. You do not need to fart around spending a load of money doing all of this stuff. But if you've tried lots of different things, then they can be really helpful in honing in what the problem is for you. So the first thing I would recommend is you go on a gluten-free diet, a dairy-free diet, get rid of all cow's milk from your diet completely, go on a soy-free diet, and potentially look at completely avoiding nuts, seeds, and all the nut and seed oils. They are 4 very interesting things that you can do straight away that are free. You don't have to pay any money for them, and you might start to find that your IBS symptoms start to improve as a result of that. Okay, if the IBS symptoms don't improve at all when you're avoiding those foods, then it might be wise to think about running some tests to then dig in a little bit further and individualize your diet. And it might be worth running a consultation with an experienced practitioner who knows the dynamics of how these substances cause problems as well. Because I've seen tremendous improvements when people went on a low oxalate diet or went on a low salicylate diet or avoided or minimize their lectins. So these substances can play a large role as well, but it gets very confusing if you're not careful. And you end up on such a restricted diet that you stop enjoying it, and that in itself can cause problems as well. So I hope this has been helpful. I know it's a little bit confusing, but if you want to weave your way through the confusion and have somebody look at your health history, your symptoms, and start to guide you, hold your hand through the process of making sure that you deal with all of these things, then please feel free to contact us, maybe book in for an initial consultation where we can review your case and figure all of this stuff out hand in hand with you. In the next video, we're going to talk about another food component that causes problems that I haven't mentioned here. It's called FODMAPs. So I look forward to seeing you then. And any questions you might have, feel free to ask, comment beneath the video, etc., and I'll catch you soon.